how can you be more motivated? How can you find greater motivation to achieve the projects that you want in your life and in your business? I've personally studied and looked at the science behind motivation for years. This is something that I am very interested in. It's something that I've used with my clients that I coach to help them to achieve their goals and to make great progress in their own business and in their life. In this episode, I'm going to break down two core things. The first one is some core principles behind the science of motivation and why it is that motivation is unreliable and what we can do instead. And the second core element is around diffusion, thought-action diffusion, and how you can use this to overcome the hurdles that are linked to motivation dependency. So first of all, when we look at motivation and some of the core ideas behind motivation, one of the core principles is that we are motivated by pain and pleasure. This is something that we can use short term for small things. Knowing that you're highly motivated by pain and pleasure means that sometimes when you're not taking action, it's because the pain of taking action is greater than the pain of not taking action. So the idea of not doing anything and not making any progress is easier to cope with than doing something, because that might be hard, you might fail, it might not work out, etc. And this is why a lot of the times we struggle to motivate ourselves, because we don't see the rewards on the moment, we don't think that it's worthwhile. And the way we pivot this around is either by making the pain of not taking action greater, by visualizing the outcomes if you don't take action, or by making the pleasure of taking action bigger. And this is typically when we shift to more intrinsic motivation, finding flow and enjoyment within the task and having purposeful activities around it. So this is one of the core elements here when it comes to motivation. We're motivated to escape pain, to gain pleasure, and we can shift more into intrinsic motivation. The good thing is that generally once we get started, we build a bit of momentum, and momentum can help to sustain motivation. Now, all of this is true when it comes to the science of motivation, but it leads to inconsistent results, because even though you might be able to tap into this pain-pleasure balance, it will be unreliable. There will be days where you just don't feel like it, where you're really tired, where you're going through something personal in your life that is challenging, when you are just not in the mood to do that task, when your peer group is doing something else. So for instance, I'm based in Sweden, I'm still working the months of July, everyone takes July off. This is something that can highly impact the level of motivation, because suddenly everyone around you is away or on holiday and you're still working. And in those moments, your motivation can really fluctuate, either depending on your own state of energy and fatigue, personal circumstances, your peer group doing something else. And so if you're only relying on this pain-pleasure balance and tapping into intrinsic motivation, some days it just won't be enough. I used to believe that the solution to this, the antidote for this, was just more discipline. I'm a huge believer in self-discipline, mindful self-discipline. I've collaborated with Giovanni Dienstmann, who wrote the book Mindful Self-Discipline, and I felt, okay, motivation is great, get me started some days. A lot of the time it's this great wave that you can ride, and when it doesn't work out, I'll just rely on self-discipline, which is really just pushing yourself to take action even though you don't feel like it. Now, this can work sometimes short term a bit, because this is how you build that muscle, right, of discipline, and you make yourself do it even though you don't feel like it. But it can also lead to willpower depletion. So if you're too often using your self-discipline, then you can feel tired or exhausted, and it can also lead to burnout. So we don't want to only rely on self-discipline. So if you can't just rely on motivation because it fluctuates so much and it's inconsistent, and you can't just rely on self-discipline because then you could burn out and have willpower depletion, then what's left? And I came across this theory that comes from cognitive psychology called thought-action diffusion. And the idea is the following: when you have a given feeling, it leads to a certain thought. So if you feel very tired or upset, the thought might be, I'm just not in the mood to do this right now. I'm too tired, I'm too upset, I'm too frustrated. And this leads to a certain action, which is very often not doing the activity. And we have this sort of fusion between the thought and the feeling and then the action. So you're feeling fed up, you're thinking, I'm fed up, I'm not in the mood, I don't want to. And as a consequence, you don't take the action and you don't do anything. Now, if you're in a work situation where you have a boss or a manager, sometimes that pressure, that extrinsic feeling that you have to because you've got something to show or prove or deliver, can make you push through it, which is one way of looking at things. But of course, if you're running your own company and sometimes you do things that you're not obligated to do, you don't have to do that post, you don't have to do a blog, you don't have to publish the next podcast. How do you get yourself to do it when you're not in the mood, when you have those thoughts and those fluctuations? And it's also very challenging because you want to have some form of compassion for yourself and not over push yourself. Again, can lead to burnout, but you also don't want to be too complacent or too lazy because then you don't make progress. So it's always a bit around navigating this tightrope and balance. So what is thought-action diffusion? This is when you build the ability to not take all of your thoughts for truth or as an order. So when you're thinking, I'm not in the mood and I don't want to do this, you're able to decorrelate it and still take action. In some ways, it is a technique that you can say that you use when you build your self-discipline, but it's really just about being able to detach from your thoughts and not taking them to be the truth. For instance, when you're about to do deep work or start something that's very challenging, you will almost always feel, I can't be bothered, I'm not in the mood, because your brain is telling you that this is something that is difficult, that is challenging, it demands huge cognitive resources. Very often in those first 5-10 minutes, there is a huge block and you don't want to do it. This is something that Steven Pressfield explains really well in The War of Art. Very, very good book. And he explains, yeah, we have this resistance every time we need to do a challenging activity or difficult task. So we feel this refusal, this resistance. When we're feeling this, it leads to the thought of, I'll do it tomorrow, I can't be bothered, I won't really do it now, it can wait. If we have a fusion, if it's merged with action, then we just won't take action because our mind will think, I'm not doing it now, it can wait tomorrow. And therefore the action will be not doing it or doing something else or doing something easier. If we learn to have this diffusion where we separate from the feeling and the thought to the action, we will hear, I can't be bothered, I'm not in the mood, it can wait, and we will still take action. So how do we learn this? How do we learn to go from this place of your mind is telling you, no, I don't want to do it, and yet you're still able to do the action? Because a lot of the time we're merged with our thoughts. If the thought says, no, I can't be bothered, it can wait, if we haven't trained it and we haven't built up some form of discipline or willpower motivation, we automatically just won't do the action. The way we shift it is we fake it, we change it, we shift our perspective, and we ask ourselves, what would it look like if I was in the mood, or if I did want to do it? One of the techniques I use in those moments to help me to shift and to see it literally cognitively from a different perspective is I visualize myself taking the action. So when I'm in that frame of mind of, I can't be bothered, it can wait, I can do it tomorrow, I see myself doing the task, I see myself enjoying the task, I see myself with the task being done, and I just picture this generally for 5 minutes. Maybe I get up, walk around, have a cup of tea, and I see myself doing it, and almost always this works. Notice that this is different to self-discipline. Self-discipline would be, I've heard the thought, I can't bother, and I'm just like, no, you need to do it, let's push through. This is a caricature of self-discipline. It's more subtle, especially with mindful self-discipline. But that's the idea that we often have, this sort of beating yourself up to do it. This is different. This is you visualize yourself. You shift your perspective and your perception, and you see the enjoyment you can get in the activity, the progress that you can make, how you feel once it's done. You remember your why, and you see yourself taking the action. And then it changes the frame of mind you're in and also enables you to take the action. Another way you can sort of fake your state into taking action is to infuse yourself with role models, peer groups, things that you think about, books, quotes, affirmations, certain things that you keep in mind just for those moments. So you might have a moment where you're thinking, I can't be bothered, I don't want to do this. And then you remember, for example, thought, action, diffusion. And then you think, I don't have to listen to my thoughts. I could choose to do it anyway. It's a bit like you're rebelling against your own thoughts, but with kindness and acceptance and compassion, you're thinking, that's fine, I get it, I hear you. but I'm not going to listen to you. It's the exact same principle that you use when you are able to not eat cake because you want to stop eating cake. You think, I really fancy eating cake, and then you don't eat the cake because you've trained yourself that it's not because your mind says I fancy that you will naturally do it. It's sort of this ability to detach from your thoughts and emotions. It's something that you practice a lot when you meditate, for example. You're able to see with a bit more distance your thoughts, your emotions, and you're not so fused and merged with everything that you think and see. One example that I read in an article would be like, if you're fused with your thoughts and your emotions, it's as if you're walking through the day like this. You've got your hands in front of your eyes, and all you're seeing are your thoughts. So you're just totally lost in your thoughts, and you're seeing the whole world through your hands. When you're able to detach, you're seeing your thoughts from a distance and your hands are slightly more down. So you're aware of your thoughts that are here below, but you're seeing the rest of the world. That's sort of how it works when you're able to detach from your thoughts and feelings and you're not totally immersed in them. This is really a technique you can use all the time. It's not just about doing things that are challenging or getting more motivated. It's something you can practice when you want to change what you're eating or some of your behaviors. Is you notice the thought, you notice the pattern, you detach from it, thought, action, diffusion, and you take a different action. You can create a new thought that can help, a new perspective, a new way of looking at things that can support you, but also you can just see the thought and take a different action. It will feel strange on the moment because we're used to having them merge. We're used to thinking, if I'm hungry, therefore I'll eat. If I'm angry, I'll suddenly get annoyed. If I'm feeling like I want to do it, then I do it. If I feel I don't want to do it, then I don't do it. We're very merged with our thoughts. We listen to them far too much and far too closely. And sometimes there's some great wisdom in our brain and our thoughts, and sometimes it's full of rubbish. So when it's telling us things that aren't supporting us, not supporting our goals, not making us feel good, and we just listen to them, we don't feel as good because we're not listening to our deeper calling, deeper purpose, things that we want to achieve in our own life that are there in the background. We're not making progress on it, and it makes us feel low and depleted and anxious, and we procrastinate, and then we get lower self-esteem. It's all this negative thing that all happen because we listen to our thoughts. And just a question, where do our thoughts come from? They're programmed. They're programmed from the life we've had, and they're programmed from our surrounding society. So it's a combination of everything you've had so far in your life. Your brain has noticed, learned, absorbed, and then it repeats it in cycles. And whatever has happened around you that you've noticed and seen, what people are saying, and all of this constructs your thoughts. But that means there's a lot of rubbish in there because a lot of us have learned things throughout our life that aren't useful, that aren't true, that aren't supporting us, but yet that's a pattern that we've created. Same when it comes to our peer group and surroundings. Being very aware of your thoughts and being able to detach when you have these thoughts, especially when they're hindering you in terms of motivation, in terms of achieving goals that are important for you, this will really support you to take action on things that are meaningful. So coming back to this idea of thought, action, diffusion, what it's all about is being able to detach from your thoughts and emotions and take actions in spite of it, if this is still like aligned with your core values and purpose. And it's a strong skill, and it doesn't mean that you're becoming robotic. It doesn't mean that you don't have any feelings and you just push through. That's a fast route to burnout. It means it's a cognitive hack on the moment when you don't want to do it or don't want to take action, or you feel that resistant or you're not motivated. You use this cognitive hack of, I can hear I'm not motivated, let me just try anyway. And off you go. And off you go filming the podcast episode, or off you go write that article, or you send in that proposal. And then you've used that cognitive hack to get started, to overcome a hurdle. And from there, you gain momentum. And then from that momentum, you don't need to use discipline or cognitive hacks or thought, action, diffusion, because from that momentum, you will naturally get things rolling, you'll see progress, you'll get in the flow, and then it becomes easier. Also, the more often you practice this, the easier it gets. The more often you train yourself to have this sort of separation between just what you're thinking and the actions you're taking, the easier it gets. And it's something that I trained a lot when it comes to exercising. So I built this habit of exercising every morning, And there were a lot of times, where I didn't want to, or I was tired, or I was cranky, or it could wait. And I just trained myself to, I hear the thought, and I go, yeah, I know. I sort of nod and smile, and then exercise anyway. It's sort of a not taking your thought too seriously. Of course, first thing when you just wake up, especially if like me, you're not a morning person, you don't want to exercise on the moment. And then I also do that hack that I mentioned earlier, which is I visualize myself. I think I see myself taking out the yoga mat or going out for the run. I see how great I'll feel. I think about how I feel afterwards. And also because I have a deal with myself to, if I skip in the morning, which is very rare, maybe once a month, then I must exercise in the evening. So then I also use the pain motivation of, if I exercise in the evening, that's more annoying, it takes more time, it's after work, all of these things. Therefore, I might as well just do it now. And it convinces me to do it in the morning. That's just using the regular sort of pain, pleasure, motivation balance. But really, I think the simplest thing is to realize that when you think something, when you feel something, you don't have to do it. And once you're able to train yourself to decorrelate, whether it's things like you feel hungry, you don't eat. This is a great skill that's practiced when people are fasting, because then you learn that, it's not just because I feel hungry, I don't have to eat. And you learn that ability, and then it's the same. It's not just because you don't feel like doing it that you can't take action anyway. And it's sort of like the fake it till you make it, but done a bit differently. It's something that I found so fascinating, because when you look at the way the brain works, a lot of the time it doesn't serve you, it doesn't serve your goals. And even if you're tired one day, there's still work that needs to be done. And yes, we don't want to push all the way to burnout, but we equally don't want to procrastinate, be lazy, become complacent, and not make progress on our goals. So we need to find some middle ground. So that was it in terms of motivation and thought-action diffusion, keeping in mind that you can separate them. It's not just discipline, it's really learning to see it differently, to shift your perspective, and this helps you to then be motivated. Of course, you can still use intrinsic motivation, feel intrinsically in the flow, enjoying the activity, or using pain, pleasure, or getting that momentum to get started. They are great, but being dependent too much on I feel like it and only doing things when you feel like it means your motivation, your entire productivity, and your entire performance is dependent on you feeling great all the time. And that is not reliable, that is not sustainable, that is not likely. So we need to find other ways to get ourselves to make progress, take action, and have this great performance in spite of a roller coaster of internal motivation. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Let me know in the comments what was most useful for you. What do you struggle with when it comes with motivation, and what actually helps you to get started when you're struggling, or during the day when you feel you can't be bothered? How do you motivate yourself to take action? If you're new to the channel, I'm Katie, high performance and resilience coach, mostly for business owners and founders, keynote speaker, and the podcast host of this show, the Focus Bee Show. And if you're new, please subscribe to the channel, give it a like, a comment, let me know your thoughts. And I'm thrilled to be here with you and share this knowledge, because I find this absolutely fascinating. Hope this was useful. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you in the next episode.